The coronavirus, it seems, is here to stay, at least for the near future, as Israel's battling a new rise in cases mainly due to the Delta variant sweeping across the country. While officials in the health ministry are calling to impose new measures, the coronavirus cabinet, it seems, is not in any rush to place new restrictions on Israelis, who have grown accustomed to life without the coronavirus these past few weeks. Here to discuss is Director of the MA Program for Public Health at the University of Haifa, Professor Manfred Green. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I think the question on everyone's mind at the moment is Israel on the verge of a fourth wave?
I think, again, we need to explain what we mean by these waves. These waves are not automatic phenomena that just occur because of the virus. Most of the time, we create them. Basically, what happens is the cases, well, the rates of the cases, numbers of cases increases. We introduce restrictions, they decline, and then we reduce the restrictions, they go up again. In this case, we've introduced a vaccine, and the vaccine obviously has changed the whole atmosphere and the whole scene. So basically now we are well protected against severe disease, but we still have a large percentage of the population who are not protected, mainly children, and probably about 1 million people who are still, among adults, who've still not taken the vaccine. So that can create these increases, but we probably won't see large numbers of serious cases.
So health officials are calling to impose new restrictions. I mean, do you think that they should be imposing new restrictions at this stage?
There are two reasons, basically, why we are concerned about the virus spreading. One, obviously, is that it increases the risk of spread to people who are not protected, and some of them are either elderly or they didn't develop immunity due to, in their vaccine doses, which is about a couple of percent. And the other, of course, is the more the vaccine circulates, the more chance there is of creating what we call variants, new kinds of, new forms of the virus. So basically, I believe we still should have restrictions. For example, wearing masks is considered to be now a very good and effective way of reducing the spread, generally in closed spaces where people are actually in public areas and they are in contact with the public, and the place is closed, like classrooms and theaters and wherever you may be. So I think those are very important. And as much as possible to restrict the large gatherings, because I think we're still at a stage where we shouldn't be having too many of these very large gatherings. Again, in closed spaces. If it's out in the open, it's much better.
So there does seem to be debate about whether new restrictions should be imposed or not. Masks, you mentioned, is something that I think everyone can agree on. What about travel restrictions? I mean, we've seen that the Delta variant, which is now spreading across Israel, has essentially come from abroad. Should we be imposing travel restrictions?
Yeah, well, the Delta variant is here, so I mean, it's too late to stop it from coming in, and it'll become probably the dominant variant as elsewhere. The question is whether we really want to restrict travel to the extent that it really becomes very problematic for actually having a normal life and a normal society. So I think we have to be very careful about introducing restrictions that are going to be, shall we say, too onerous on the population. The other thing, one point that I want to make, once these restrictions are introduced, it's very important that there are the technical administrative aspects that are dealt with. For example, telling people that when they come back from abroad, they have to go and have a test 4 days later and so on. That means that the government should provide the facilities that are convenient and cheap. I would say free, basically. In other words, open large numbers of testing centers and make them available free to the public. That, I think, would be a good deal.
All right, Professor Manfred Green, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Pleasure.